Hello, everyone, and welcome to Soul to Soul with Lisa Scholes, a video series of psychic phenomenon, mediumship, energy healing, and much, much more. My name is Lisa, and I'm a professional psychic medium. I am also an energy healer using body talk, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Today, I have with me my friend, Charles. He was also a mentor and my teacher when I first became a professional medium, and he is located in Denver, Colorado. So a little bit about Charles. Charles was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska, where he discovered at age 17 some spiritualist teachers who opened him up to the world of readings, seances, and psychic experiences. In 1981, he moved to Colorado, where he continued to study spiritualism and a number of talented teachers. At age 25, he was reading full-time at a local metaphysical bookstore. And in 1991, he was ordained as a spiritualist minister at Sunset Spiritualist Church in Wells, Kansas. Charles is a psychic medium, he is a teacher, and he is a mentor. In 2009, Charles founded the Denver Psychic Development Meetup Group. It has since grown to be the largest psychic development meetup group with over 3,000 members. So welcome, Charles. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited about this talk because I think many people who follow my page and yours as well, who are not professional mediums, but are very, very interested in psychic phenomenon, would like to learn more, like to dig a little bit deeper.
Sure.
So tell me, so what made you pursue mediumship? I mean, you're out there in Nebraska. Like, I can't imagine that this was something back in the 70s and 80s, right? I can't imagine this was something that a whole lot of people talked about. So what brought you into this world?
Well, I have often thought about this, that the world of spiritualism and mediumship kind of found me. So I was definitely interested in this, born to religious parents, but I had questions like at age 10 about what happened when you died and whatever. And this was problematic for parents that, you don't have any beliefs that don't exist outside that book. So when I met these spiritualist ministers at 17, what they were teaching spoke to what I believed somewhere already inside me. And so the mediumship piece, I think, came out of that. And I was fascinated with that. I had already had deaths in my family as a young man before I ever moved to Colorado. And so I was probably already primed more than other people my age, for sure, about death and what happens and what's next. So spiritualism did that for me. So I think mediumship particularly kind of found me, and I found it in spiritualism.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So did you have an experience ever as a child with someone from the spirit world, or did you not have anything like that? You just sort of was interested in this, but did you have a personal experience?
Well, I had a grandmother, both of my grandmothers passed away when I was young. And one particular grandmother, I just felt her around. And I don't think I ever shared that, because even at 13 and 14, I understood that if I said to someone, particularly religious parents, I feel grandma around, that I would be spoken to like a 13-year-old, which was, of course you love grandma and you miss grandma and you want her to be around. But I knew that wasn't the case, right? So I didn't share a lot of that. I just had this sense of grandma being around. And this particular grandmother has been around a lot through my early years and up to present time.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've talked to so many people who are professional mediums now, and we all have a very similar story about being afraid to say to our family members, when we're young, when we're kids or, teenagers, I really believe that this is grandma with me, because of the reaction that we get from others,
And I understand, like I said, I get it that if this is not something I believed and I had a child who said this to me, I wouldn't even be able to really address the subject matter. Yeah. And somehow I got that. Somehow I was mature beyond my years as far as those beliefs. And like you said, so many of us who've had that experience had that understanding.
So you
Right.
you leave Nebraska, you move to Colorado to go to school, and by age 25, you're actually working as a professional psychic medium. That's
Yes.
pretty young to start working. That happened. How did you end up becoming a professional so young?
Well, I'll tell you, at 20 or 21, somewhere right in there, I had the opportunity to read at a big psychic fair as a student psychic.
Okay.
And so I took advantage of it. There's no money on the line, right? If you wanted to give me $5, you could give me $5. But
Sure.
I could try this out.
Right.
So I am not sitting at the table, not even probably 20 minutes, and in walks a woman who was a very famous psychic here in the Denver area in the 70s and early 80s,
Uh-huh.
who comes over and sits down at my table. And I remember thinking, oh crap, you know,
Yeah.
here's someone who I've seen on TV, who I hear on the radio.
Uh-huh.
And so I read for her, and my eye-opening experience with that was that her questions were not unlike questions, Lisa, that you would ask, or that any client
Yeah.
of mine asked.
Mm-hmm.
She was a real person,
Yes.
regardless of the fact that I'd seen her on TV or
Yep.
read her stuff in the Rocky Mountain News or whatever.
Right.
And so I think that kind of emboldened me. It for sure solidified in me the belief that we are all the same.
Yeah.
And when you can really take in that belief and understand it, it causes a lot of energetic rapport.
Yes.
Then
Yeah.
my story, your story, the events in our lives are very similar. Your
Mm-hmm.
particular details are different.
Yeah.
My particular details are different, but the story is very similar.
Yeah.
And so that helped me looking back. And certainly this wasn't a conscious process at the time, but I think I understood right there that I could connect to someone and understand what was going on in their life, even in my early 20s. Now I laugh about this. I'm like, who would want a reading with a 25-year-old?
But for some reason, she was drawn to you.
She
She
was.
was drawn to you.
She and I are still friends today. She lives in California
Oh, that's wonderful.
all these years later. So that's a lot of fun.
So you started reading and
Mhm.
doing the typical stuff, right? You're in a bookstore, maybe giving readings, you're at a psychic fair, things like that. But then that you end up going into teaching, right? So you move from doing the readings to teaching, and then you develop the Denver Psychic Development meetup group, which is now the world's largest meetup
Right.
group, isn't it, for psychic
Yes.
development, which is
Yep.
really impressive. Right. So how did you decide to teach? Like, what brought you to teaching?
I think a lot of my early teachers made it fun.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and I wanted to have that experience. I liked in my 20s having those moments where I was blown away, where literally the corner of the universe is pulled back and I can see a whole nother world.
Yeah.
And that seemed like fun to me to be able to do that, to help other people with that.
Mhm.
In the real world, in a not a real world, but in the perfect world, people wouldn't need mediums, right?
Mhm.
You would
Yeah.
just have this connection with the
Right.
spirit world.
Right.
But I wanted to give people tools to be able to have these experiences
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
have some fun with it. And I got to be the bystander, right? One of my favorite teachers, one of my favorite mentors, used to say to me, the most you could ever hope to do would be to hold the door for the person behind you.
Yes. Yeah.
And I love that. So
What you've
I
done.
I interpreted that into my own life, into my own teachings. I didn't want to be a guru. I have all the answers. I
Right.
created a place that people could come and have these experiences if they were ready to have them, right?
Yeah.
I'm not pushing anyone into
Right. No.
this. And the experiences in the Denver Psychic Development Meetup Group have been wonderful because people have responded to that, which is validating to me. Not an ego thing, but yes, people wanted that, and I got to hold the door open for
Sure.
them.
Yep.
You know, I'll
Absolutely.
tell you a real quick story. Recently, I went to the psychic fair last fall up at the Merchandise Mart,
Uh-huh.
and I walked around. I haven't been up there in years, haven't worked it in years, and I saw 6 different people at tables who had taken classes with me. Now, I don't take credit for that,
Yeah.
right? But part of my teaching and part of my energy was at these different tables.
Absolutely.
It warmed my heart. It was
Yeah.
very nice.
Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. So you teach about 4 or 5 classes a month, different types of classes. I remember
Yes.
some of the ones that I've taken with you. We've done psychometry, we've done
Mhm.
psychic detective work, we've done all kinds of interesting things. But you also do a séance once a month, right? So
Yes.
what's the difference between a séance and a class?
Let me start with the classes. So the classes are all experiential. Adult learners learn best when they have hands-on. So
Yeah,
nobody wants to come to my class about knitting and watch me knit for 2 hours.
right.
Right?
You got to
So
practice. You have to
that's
practice.
exactly right. So
Yep.
you've been to some of the classes.
Oh yeah.
We are practice giving and receiving messages. We're doing
Hmm.
psychometry. We're doing billets.
Yep.
Any of these subject matter, I throw out the subject. I give a little instruction, and for the remaining 90 minutes of the class, we do it.
Right.
People have little
Yep.
breakthroughs. It's not about me, whatever. The
Right.
seances are, and you have to do jazz hands. It's the Charles Cox show.
Okay.
So the seance is me giving messages. The seance is me leading people through a guided meditation. It is me as the medium that is taking people on an experience.
Okay.
So that's primarily the difference between the classes and the seance.
Okay. So in the seance, then, have you ever experienced um, physical phenomenon? And maybe we should talk to our listeners about the difference between physical mediumship and mental mediumship. So mental mediumship is something that both you and I do, right?
Yes.
That's what we primarily do, which is mind-to-mind communication. The easiest way for me to talk about it is those of you who watch Teresa Caputo on Long Island Medium, that's the type of mediumship that she does. It's mind to mind. It gets downloaded into our mind. And
Right.
then we tell you everything that we're perceiving about people from the spirit world. Then we have trance mediumship, which is you're sitting in a dark room with typically a red light on, and the medium, you can start to see the voice will change, the medium's voice will change to maybe some, the person in the spirit world, or you'll start to see their physical features change a little bit, but it's all just listening to what that medium has to say, right? That's
Mhm.
trance.
Yes. Yes.
And then there's physical mediumship, right? Where again, you have the medium sitting there who goes into a trance-like state, but then physical phenomenon can happen. And I suppose that could happen in a trance too, but physical mediumship, where we have ectoplasm, right? Where we literally have energy coming out, physical energy coming out of our mouths or our nose or our eyes. I'm sure people have seen pictures of this from like the 1800s, turn of the
Right.
century, those
Right.
kind of things. And it still does happen to this day, a lot more popular in the UK than it is here in the States. But so that's what physical phenomena can be, but there's other things that can be physical phenomena, correct? So
Yes.
like we could have a smell, we could have a shared experience with a smell, right? Or
Yes.
something like that. So can you talk a little bit more about any stories that you've had, or have you experienced physical phenomena? And,
Yes. And by the way, these are not mutually exclusive
right.
paths,
That's
right?
true. That is true.
So we use a red light in our seance that we do
Okay.
every month. That is
Okay.
a very traditional spiritualist uh, tool.
Mm-hmm.
And the belief is that the red light, so we don't do the seances in the dark. There's a candle burning and a red light, and it helps shift the perception of the eyes in the room
Yeah.
to things that are moving on. So with a candle burning in a sealed room, a candle burning in a red light, after your eyes adjust, you'll be shocked at how bright it is in there. So
Yeah.
we're nowhere near being in the dark.
Right.
So it wasn't long after I started doing seances, which has been 10 years, doing them on a regular basis,
Yeah.
that things would happen in the room. And
Mm-hmm.
what's fun about that is that it is not a psychic experience, right?
Right.
So it's not like you say, well, geez, I see a ghost standing in the corner, and someone else says, I see that ghost standing in the corner, but no one else can. When there's physical phenomena in the room,
Yeah.
it's in the room.
Right. It's
People
there. It's
can,
present. It's real.
it's
It's
there.
tangible. It's
It
tangible.
is.
Hmm.
And it can show up in all different kinds of ways. I'll give you a couple of real quick examples. There was a seance we did one night where we could hear someone running. A majority of our seances are at Isis Bookstore in Englewood.
Okay.
We could hear someone running in the store. Now the store is closed and has been closed for hours.
Right.
Like they were running back and forth.
And the doors are locked, right? So you've got
Doors are locked.
the room is sealed.
Room is sealed. It's 8 o'clock at night. The store's been closed for a couple hours.
Yeah.
There are no employees in the building. And certainly the employees are not running, right?
Right.
Then the running comes right at the wall, through the wall, runs right through. There's a physical sensation of movement and sound right through the center of the seance room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a lady say to me, what was that? That was cool, is what that was, right?
That's physical phenomena.
That's physical phenomena because everyone heard it.
Everyone, yeah.
One night in a seance, there was a woman sitting to my left, and with the red light and the candle, shadows are cast on the wall. So I noticed in the middle of the seance that her shadow was moving, and it kept getting bigger.
Yeah.
And I'm watching her because I don't think she's doing anything right, but I'm in my mind, in the 3D world that we live in, she must be leaning forward, right? Which is causing her shadow to grow behind her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm giving readings to, someone to my right, but I'm completely focused on this lady over here.
Yeah.
Who is not moving. Finally, two women on the other side of the room said, "What's up with her shadow?" Yes. See?
Yeah.
And as soon as one of those women said that, the shadow went.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Right? I guess we could talk about this, but it maybe just wanted to be acknowledged. I don't know. But it was people on the other side of the room could see it. It was a physical thing going on in the room. And when you talked earlier about seances with the changing of the face, that's called transfiguration, and it can happen to anyone in the room. And so it's not uncommon in the course of a seance where someone across the room will say to another woman, "Did you put on your glasses?" "No, I don't wear glasses." And you can see it.
Yeah.
I can see glasses on her face.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly, because I think these are probably unique to each situation. But point of this is that kind of phenomena is a real physical, honest to God, something happening in the room.
Right. And so I would say, and maybe you'll disagree with me, but I would say for someone who is easily spooked or, nervous and has never been around to a class of yours or never done anything psychic, I would maybe say not to come to a seance the first time, because it could spook you out. Even though I know you, Charles, I know your ethics. I know the reason why you don't do things in a pitch black room is because you want to make sure none of your attendees are doing anything to manipulate, the information or the space, or to try to create something that isn't truly psychic phenomenon, right? So I appreciate that about you. But still, you can have some nervous people coming in who this might be a little bit too much for them. So I want to point that out. But I also want to say too, that your example of the running is pretty extreme, right? Like boom, 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 runs right through the room. But a lot of physical phenomena is more subtle. It's softer. It's more subtle. Like it's not so scary. It's just kind of like, what was that? Like, and how you said earlier, there's overlap between mental mediumship, physical mediumship, and all that. We can have physical phenomenon while we're doing mental mediumship. I remember you and I were sitting next to each other in a development group, just a regular psychic, well, it was a mediumship development group. And we had been sitting there, the door had been locked. We were probably a good hour in to this group. And you're to my right, and someone is giving somebody else a reading across the room, whatever. And all of a sudden to my left, I start smelling cigarette smoke. Now the room is totally sealed. None of us are smoking cigarettes. No one is in the building. It's a small building. No one's there. And I see, and I'm looking at the group from what my perspective, no one else seems to be noticing this. So I'm thinking, what the heck is this? And as I turn to go back to face center, I see you out of the corner of my eye. You're looking to the left too.
Right.
So then I'm looking at you and we both go, and we both like, yeah, yes, we're smelling that. We are smelling it. So that was also an example of physical phenomena. It was subtle. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't scary. It wasn't, someone running through the room, but that is, you would say that's physical phenomena as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know how else we would explain that. It was a shared experience by both of us, maybe not everyone else in the room, but you and I both smelled it. And it was something that came outside of our mind.
When you have those experiences, and maybe you have that experience for the first time, and it's a shared experience, it's harder to dismiss that.
It is. And I think that's really important for people too, because even as mediums, it's important for us to experience those things. I know for me, when I first started studying mediumship and I was questioning everything, I would question, was that my imagination? Did I just make that up? Now I know what it feels like to be connected with the spirit world, and I know to trust that, and I know that it's not my imagination. But in the early days, you do question it all, right? But when you have that shared experience with someone else, it's like a tangible piece from the other side. It's tangible proof that someone else is present in the room with you. It's really cool. It
is, right? And taking the steps that you're comfortable with, just affirming to you, yes, the very first step in your spiritual journey may not be a seance.
Right. It's probably good advice. But, I think also for you to say, and I've told people this too, when you're starting to learn about psychic phenomena and mediumship and everything, you can always just say out loud or in your mind, don't give me anything I'm not ready for.
Right.
Don't give me anything I'm not ready for. Because if you're really worried about being spooked, of course, if you get spooked, you're not going to come back to this, and if it's really something you want to pursue, it's okay to go slow, and you should go slow.
Energetic boundaries. I think people come to class and they have a couple experiences and they want more. I get that. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting.
Right? But I don't want someone pulling on my toes at 2 a.m.
Right. No.
Right.
You don't.
So I have had this specific question in class before. How do you get people from waking you up in the middle of the night? You know what? My bedroom has boundaries.
Yeah.
That's my bedroom.
Yep.
I rest in there and I read in there. There's no phone in the bedroom. There's no TV in the bedroom. That's what that room is for.
Yeah.
And you extend that attitude into the energetic realm.
Right.
I'd love to read for you. Not at 2 a.m.
Right. But
right?
not now.
I'm not calling someone.
Right.
Hey, Bob, Aunt Joan's on the phone. No.
Yeah. And some people in the spirit world do have good boundaries and some people don't. It's just like here in this realm. Some people have good boundaries and some people don't. But you are sovereign over your space, and you are able to say, I'm not ready to talk to you right now, and I'm not going to talk to you right now. When I flip that switch for mediumship, then that's the time. And once you start establishing that, you'll see it happening less and less and less.
Here's my recommendation for energetic boundaries. My body is the boundary, right? But if I don't have if I'm not aware of that, then I don't have any tools at hand to execute that. So I tell people, put your feet flat on the floor, take a deep breath. Right? I don't know about you, but I don't make great decisions when I'm overwrought, when I'm strung out. So if nothing else, I'm going to make better decisions.
Yeah.
Take a couple deep breaths. It's not fancy or new age, so I can do it at work. Lisa, you can do it at work. Nobody's going to be like, she's doing that thing again.
Right.
Right? Right?
She's breathing.
That's exactly right. You close your eyes, you take a couple deep breaths, and part of that is a visualization. I'm just pulling in all of these crazy thoughts about work and driving home and doing this interview with you, so that I'm present in this moment. When I'm present in this moment, my boundaries are much better. So to begin a reading, there is a very brief period of time where I take 30 seconds to a minute to pull in my energy. Well, energy follows intention. So when you sit down and you say, I'd like to be more centered and more present, there are probably 100 roads to get to that point. It's the thought and saying those words I need to be present, I need to be focused, I need to be grounded.
Mm-hmm.
That's the magic right there.
Yeah.
And you have to discover, for you on this path, you have to discover what those words are, where that place is that works for you.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that's the mechanism. Yeah.
You'll feel better with energetic boundaries. You will feel better. You're not meant to be, as a medium or a psychic, you are not meant to be on all the time. It is
Right.
not, that's how reality TV presents it, but that is
Right.
not how it truly is. It just isn't. And you're going to blow out your adrenals if you're going to try to be reading people all the time. That's it, no, that's not what you should be doing. That's not even good self-care. So
It's not, and I'm fully aware that I participate in a religion. Again, spiritualism is a religion.
Mhm.
That I participate in a religion that's kind of on the edge. So I don't feel like it's my place to wander up and down the aisles of King Supers. Be like, hey, your grandma's here.
That's one of the things that James Von Prague taught me. He's one of my mentors and teachers too, is never, ever drop a reading on somebody, ever. Even though they show that on TV, don't do it, because the person who is standing there in King Supers may not be ready to hear what you have to say. They
Right.
just might not. And
Right.
you're doing something that might not be a big deal to you, but it's a huge deal for them. So don't do that. Really be mindful and have a good boundary yourself. Really have some good boundaries yourself.
Right. And I liken it to me being at the grocery store and having someone come up to me and ask me if Jesus is my Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
It's inappropriate. To your point, it's inappropriate in that environment.
Right. It is. Yep.
Right. You're going to convert me over the tangerines? Probably not. So I'm not going to convert you to spiritualism on the pasta aisle because grandma said this.
Yeah. Right. No, absolutely not.
That's not gonna work.
So we, here we are, we're taping this in April. We're in the COVID pandemic, right? Even though it's starting to lift and people are beginning to get back to what we would consider normal, and who knows what that's even going to look like, right? But I think a lot of people, we've been social isolating. We've been home. We have been alone. For me as a medium and having all these experiences, I know that I'm not alone. I know that I have a whole unseen world around me. I've got a spirit team around me, right? I've got angels, we've got guides, we've got our loved ones on the other side who are always surrounding us and always wanting to connect with us and support us, and who still continue to love us and are an active part of our lives. Even though we can't always perceive them, they are here, right? So what would you say to people who maybe are feeling really alone right now, or sad, distraught, depressed, from being isolated? Well, do you have anything you'd want to add to that?
I think the idea of self-care at a time like this is so important, and that can take so many different forms in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I found myself doing a lot in the last month is telling people that I'm connecting with, turn off the news.
Yeah.
Right? As a way to create better boundaries.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, boundaries
this
too.
is terrible. That what's going on is terrible. But it is not less terrible if I turn off the TV.
Right. Yes.
Right? It is not less terrible. And so in finding a silence, I think most people, and I would put myself in this place from time to time, we're afraid of silence.
Yeah.
So turn off the TV, turn off the radio, right? And you might have your very first experience of having something reach out to you, or you reach out to something. Now, you and I believe this, right? Yeah. I believe that I'm surrounded by people who want me to be happy, want me to be successful, want me to be loved. But I have to open up to that. And it's not, and this is important that I say this too. If I don't open up to it, it's not that I am punished in any way, but this is a resource around me that I can choose to use.
Yes.
And so, but when you and I talk about not reading for somebody at King Supers, I don't believe that spirit guides, guardian angels, even our friends and families members who've passed, No one comes running by with a 2x4 and says, Lisa, really, for Christ's sake, get it together. They're letting you live this life.
Yeah. Yep.
And the spirit guide doesn't say to you, I could help, they don't. This is what's hard for us to, I think, to imagine these types of entities. They're not like people. So there's no ego in play. So you maybe you're watching this and maybe you're in your 50s or your 60s and you've never reached out to a spirit guide before ever. The first thing you're going to get back from the spirit guide isn't going to be like, really, you're 60. You've waited this long? Hello, yeah. I have cobwebs standing here all these years, right?
Yeah.
They want to help you.
Right.
And this is about opening that door. And when in my life and so many people that I've known and had the pleasure of knowing, when you have this awareness that you're part of something bigger, it really, it puts the ego stuff in check. It puts my wants and desires in check. What comes through in a lot of readings is spirit will come through and say, Lisa, you have choices, right? And the client will say, I have no choice. I don't believe in no choices. And
we're
oftentimes
choice. We are always at choice. Yes.
Right? So spirit comes through, they see something different than we see. Mm-hmm. And those are the messages that oftentimes are more healing than just knowing that mom or dad are still standing here, but that mom and dad, they're interested in you being happy. They're interested in you. I know you told me you have children. The deal is you're going to watch them as they get older, make decisions where you're going to be like, ooh, That doesn't mean that you're not going to want to run in there and fix it. You just can't.
Right.
The spirits don't run in and fix it.
Right.
But if your kid said to you, Mom, I have this thing of doing this, making this one horrendous, horrible choice, or perhaps something that might work out, what do you think?
Yeah.
I'd say, well, let's talk. I think the working out thing would be better. My mom gave me a terrific gift just a month or so before she passed. And we were talking about the good stuff and the bad stuff. And she looked at me and she said, all I ever wanted was for you to be happy. And I realized how hard it was for her to say that. Mm-hmm. But I got the sense of that. So even where she had interfered or said something, at the end of the day, all she ever wanted was for me to be happy.
Right. Yep.
And so that helped me put another piece of the puzzle together for a lot of the spirits that come forward. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. You'll say, and you might get this, should I take this job or take that job? Should I, go with this guy or go with that guy? And I'm going to ask Mom. Mom doesn't care. Mom wants you to be happy.
Yeah.
Would you be happier at that job? Would you be happier dating that man? Would you be happier alone? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's less, I get from spirit directly less guidance than I think people want.
Part of our journey here is making hard decisions. Part of our journey here is making mistakes and learning from them. That's the whole purpose too, So wouldn't it be easier if we all had a life map where we could be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do and this is going to work out best. Of course, that would be great, but that's just not how it works. So,
and then over coffee, we'd be all silly and I'd be like, I know I shouldn't have done this, but I went ahead 10 pages.
Yeah. Right. So we have to kind of check ourselves and remember we are sovereign over our space. We are in control of our lives. We are responsible for the choices that we make, good, bad, ugly. Right. And you just have to trust yourself and start to trust your own intuition. And if you make a mistake, fine. Then you go back and you redo it and life moves on, it'll be okay.
Right. That's a big life lesson. And if you can even share that, which is not necessarily a message from spirit, if you can share that with a client and they hear it, that's huge. Live with it. There are very few decisions in my life that I've had to live with, right? That I couldn't go back, to your point, go back and change and make another decision.
Make another choice.
Right. But there's this voice in our head, well, Lisa, you made that bet, you should lie in it. Mm-hmm. That's not that
That's
doesn't come from
punishing.
spirit. Right,
That's
exactly
punishing.
right.
And that puts people in a victim mentality and not in a powerful place, which is you are always at choice to make a change. You can always get out of a situation. You can always, turn it around. Even if it's changing your mind about it, you are always at choice, right?
That's a healing thing for me. Course in Miracles says that healing happens in an instant.
Yeah.
But I think the instant of healing happens when I see that there are other choices.
Yes. Yep.
When I am distraught because I'm on this path and I can tell you this is what's going to happen tomorrow, this is what's going to happen next week and next month. When I see that I might have other course of action, that's healing in the moment.
Yes, it is.
It's
It is.
huge.
Yep.
And then you can laugh about it later. I thought this was going to be a catastrophe, and it turned out not to be.
Right. So in addition to, I know I want to be mindful of our time and our listeners' time, but so in addition to teaching, you are also available to give private readings, correct?
Yes,
You do that stuff?
Yes, I read at my office in Lakewood, and I also read once we are not under lockdown anymore. I read at ISIS Books in Englewood.
Okay.
And I've been doing phone readings now, but I really am social distancing is really hard for me because I just like people, right? So if given a choice, I'd rather have someone here in my office than read for them on the phone. But, this is the world we live in.
Yes. And also, it's a good thing to point out too, it doesn't matter energetically from the mechanics of mediumship. It doesn't matter if it's over the phone, if a reading is over Zoom, or if it's in person. Energy is non-local. So it really doesn't make the reading any better if you're in person. It's just you being a person, a people person, you prefer to have them there. And it is quite an experience to actually physically go to an office and have a reading. I think it's fun, but sometimes we can't do that, and sometimes we have clients all over the world or, all over the country, and this is the best we can do. But it really, I want to be really clear to people, because I know that's always been a question that's come up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the connection here. So to not worry about it. If all you can do is a Zoom call or a phone call, that's fine. So
there's a lot. Zoom is amazing, that I can see you and that you can see me and we can hear each other. But there's a lot for me just in a phone call, in being able to hear your voice and just speaking reader to reader. There's something cool about doing phone readings where I can't see you.
Yes. Yeah.
That can really be validating to me, because there aren't even subconscious cues.
Right.
So in a reading, you might be listening to me going like this, completely unaware that you're going like this, right? But on the phone, this is silent. I don't get nothing. I don't see it. So the phone readings, although I'd rather have you here in the office, the phone readings have a whole different aspect that can be really exciting and fulfilling.
Absolutely. So how do people get in touch with you?
My website is www.denver-psychic.com, or you can just Google my name, Charles Cox Psychic, and it'll come right up.
Wonderful.
And
wonderful.
The classes that I teach and articles that I've written, and I sell 3 classes that you can download and take at home if you are in lockdown and you want to learn some basic practices at home. That's all available on my website.
Perfect. And if anyone is interested in learning more about me, you can find me at www.mediumlisascholes.com, or you can find me on Facebook at Medium Lisa Scholes. So thank you so much, Charles, for this very interesting talk. I really appreciate it. And I feel like I've learned so much more. You are a wonderful teacher, so I'm very grateful. I appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you having me, inviting me to do this.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I will talk to you soon, and goodbye, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.